Hey everybody, welcome to the O365 Pulse. We have the whole team here today, so that is very, very exciting. We have some cool announcements. I think they tricked us though, because we have a very long roadmap today, but it's really a couple of items split into many, many, many posts. So very cool updates. We will start in development, go to rolling out, go to launch, and then go to canceled. So I'm going to pass it to our newest host to go first and start with in development. So Tamara, hit us up with what you think is awesome in the in development category this week.
I think what's awesome in the third party in development is the third party sign-on, single sign-on for apps in Teams. That means that you won't have to log into them. It'll just pass your credentials right through. So it'll really help create that seamless environment that Teams is going for. So I'm excited about that.
I am too, especially because we have a training app, and right now users, sometimes they're logged in because they're logged in, and then other times they have to hit it, and so it will just be much easier when they can just log in. So super, super excited about that. Tom, I'm going to let you go next so you can hit you can hit the whammy. Hit the whammy, Tom.
That is a huge sacrifice on your part, because I'm going to wipe out about 20 items on the roadmap.
I know, and I'm going to just stand here and rejoice because everyone knows I love them, and I love you because I'm letting you say it.
Especially after what happened before we started recording, you're still letting me go first. What can I say?
Sacrifice and love.
For those you don't know, I kind of inadvertently implied that she might be dumb, even though that was not my intention. I am so in trouble now. Anyway, so last week we had the Microsoft Build Conference, which normally would be an in-person event of like 9,000 people. Instead, it was an online event with about 250,000 people. It was free, and they did some major announcements, one of which kind of captured almost all the attention, it seems like, and that was a new thing called Microsoft Lists. And you may go, well, we've got lists in SharePoint. Well, what they're doing is they're taking the list concept and they're expanding it out to where you can do lists in Teams, you can do private lists, you can do all these different things, and they will do standalone on themselves, or they can be shared. It's really kind of cool once you wrap your mind around, well, what happens, where they stored at, stuff like that. The thing that I kind of like is some of the features that they are including in the Microsoft Lists. Because it's built on SharePoint, these are features that are going to be available in our SharePoint lists, I'm assuming, which is like really, really freaking cool. So I'm going to go through these real quick. And like I say, there's a number of roadmap items for each of those. But you're going to be able to create new lists and add existing ones as tabs in team channels. So if you need a list in your team to do planning or scheduling or stuff like that, poof, you create a list in Teams. You didn't have to go to SharePoint. You didn't have to have another site. It's really kind of cool. You can create if-then lists or if-then rules based on changes to list notifications to set reminders and notifications. They're all going to be built in there, which is like really, really nice. You can share entire lists or individual list items to individuals or groups. You can edit, and the ability to manage access by expiration and password protection. That's really awesome. Just what information shows in the out-of-the-box forms and include custom header, footer, imagery, and information. So now when you say, hey, we just want to use a default SharePoint list form, now you can have like a form layout that almost looks tablet-like. You can have headers, you can have footer information. It's like all of a sudden this kind of becomes a bit of a replacement, especially for us because we're doing an info path migration. We're starting to see out-of-the-box default SharePoint lists as being a viable option in many of these cases. You can create new lists from ready-made templates. There's going to be 8 templates to begin with, which is issue tracker, new hire checklist, event itinerary, business trip approvals, team evaluations, asset tracker, project planning, and social media calendar. And of course, you'll be able to go in and start your work off those and then go ahead and customize them and go from there. You'll be able to visualize any list with items that use date column format in a calendar view. Yay! Trying to get a calendar view on things is not easy in many cases, unless it's truly a calendar. Another thing which is really cool is you scroll left and right on the list. The first column of your list is going to remain in place. So you've got sticky columns as opposed to the sticky header, and I shouldn't say it as opposed, in addition to the sticky headers that go across the top. So you're going to have a much easier experience to see the data as you're scrolling up and down and back and forth. And then finally, and I think this is like really awesome too, is that you can add comments on a list or list items, including app mention capabilities. So if you create a list item for something and you want to call attention to it with your coworker, you can go out there and make a comment and do app mention of their name, and they're going to get a notification. And now you can have comments that become part of the context of that list item instead of things being done in the background and you losing that connection in the future. By and large, I think the Microsoft list item is going to end up being, or Microsoft Lists is going to end up being a really, I don't want to use the word game changer because that's often overplayed, but I think that's going to be a very popular feature that people are going to be able to work with. And it's going to bring the concept of doing list development down to people who are working in teams instead of, oh, I need to go get a developer to build me a list or something like that. So really cool. Jennifer, thank you so very much. You are an excellent person and so intelligent. Thank you for letting me cover that particular topic.
Well, what I will say about that one is I'm super excited from a usability standpoint. I think people are going to be a little bit scared because it's a major, major change. So we're going from I have a SharePoint change to now I have list. But I think if we take a step back and we look at it, it actually makes more sense to the everyday consumer in the structure of everything that is Microsoft. So I think the change, it's more like, oh, well, just like I have an Excel file here that everyone can be working with, I have this living thing that is a list now that I can be working with, and maybe it's in SharePoint, maybe it's in Teams, maybe I'm doing it this way, and it's got some incredible functionality in it finally, so that we don't have to answer of, well, do I need to go into Power Apps to just make these simple list changes? No, just go into the browser, do what you need to do, let developers or very advanced power users, people that want to play with semicolons and syntax, do you like semicolons and syntax, then go to Power Apps. They're not scary to everyone, but if they're scary to you, stay in the browser. If you want to explore with those tools, by all means, everyone can go learn that skill set if they want to, but there's a huge percentage of people that doesn't want to. So it helps to delineate that line just a little bit more. And like you were saying, Tom, I think it's going to save you guys a ton of those simple things you used to do in InfoPath that were just show an image if it's late, show a icon for this one, show a whatever. That kind of stuff is going to be so simple to do now. They look so good. And I'm so excited about these changes. And so while it is a major change that's coming, I don't think when you start to look at it from a perspective of, oh my gosh, this is going to like radically be something crazy. I think it's a very natural change for people. So I think this one's going to be embraced.
Yeah, I'm really, go ahead, Tom.
Oh, I was going to say, I think the other thing too that really comes into play here, and it's going to be a bit more cultural, and this will take, I believe, longer. And that is many people are like, well, I'm going to put this in Excel because they're used to a row and column type format. Well, now it's like, well, I'm going to create a list. You get that same row and column format with all these other features. So I think you're going to find over time, less data will be residing in these standalone files that are put somewhere in Excel, and they will migrate into being lists or interact with them. It becomes part of the company.
With Power BI reporting and all that kind of stuff.
Yes,
yep.
yes.
Yeah, so I was just going to say,
sorry,
so
Adam, go ahead.
I think for us, whenever we look at it, for people that are working in SharePoint all the time, lists was a very natural thing. I started my IT career with email support with a whole bunch of people that SharePoint was a dirty word. Like some clients, you'd go through and mention SharePoint to them and they would have an aneurysm and not want to talk to you anymore. And it's easy for us when we are working with SharePoint all the time to understand all the great things about it. I really see this as opening up the functionality and the benefits that lists bring to a much broader audience, kind of to what Jen was saying, because if you're a company that hasn't fully embraced SharePoint or maybe just do files in there and nothing else, this is opening up a huge section that can largely benefit companies that maybe they weren't willing to foray into just because that meant going into SharePoint, right? And whether they had a bad experience for SharePoint in the past or their company just hadn't approved or built out infrastructure there, this is really bringing what I see as one of the two major core functionalities that SharePoint can really bring, or two of the three, bringing that to people that maybe wouldn't have had it otherwise. So I see this as Jenn was kind of saying, as a value add to the vast majority of the Microsoft customer base that's consuming M365 that a large section of them maybe wasn't getting previously. So I think it's a very smart move by Microsoft, because I think it's basically making most of their customers' life easier. And if you already use SharePoint, like you said, new features in the list are coming, and it's really just taking something you're already comfortable with and making it more accessible. And if you didn't use it before, it's almost like you're getting new feature sets, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Adam, what do you see in the role or in development area that's coming?
I have one that can take like 2 seconds, but I'll ask you the same, just because if you had something you wanted to talk about, you can go ahead, Jenn.
No, go for it. Go for it, and then I'll grab.
All I was going to say very simply, Office 365 Groups is being renamed Microsoft 365 Groups. There's nothing special about it. You're just following the same trend we've been seeing for the last 3 or 4 months. So Office 365 Groups, if you're used to saying that, they're becoming Microsoft 365 Groups, just like everything is switching to the Microsoft moniker away from Office.
Yep. I've seen one, which is the GCC tenants. Microsoft Teams live captions is in development there. That's something that we see common. We saw it come to enterprise or the commercial cloud. So now it's coming to GCC cloud. So not shocking there. The lobby, there's a new setting. So only the organizer joins the meeting directly and everyone else sits in the lobby. They're just changing all of those lobby and organizer settings so that you can get every possible combination so they can please everyone. They've got all of that in development. Is there anything else on the list, guys, for in development that we haven't talked through? Go ahead, Tom.
I'm surprised you didn't grab these. I thought this was going to be your second choice. There are like 5 entries out there for SharePoint lists and libraries. And this is in addition to what we've just talked about with lists, but they've given some love to the standard SharePoint lists and libraries out there. And so the 5 items are, you'll now be able to do or select multiple items, and this will work in lists and libraries, to do bulk editing of document properties or list item properties all at once. Yeah, instead of having to open it up, make your change, close it, open it up, make your change, close it. That's going to be really, really nice. A second one, which is like, really, it took them this long, but I'll take it, not a problem. You will now be able to create new views in quick edit mode, and it will open in quick edit mode. Instead of you having to create a view and then tell them, well, click on the little quick edit thing. It's like when we used to create datasheet views.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, that was like, why couldn't we do that and just out of the box and have it happen? So that's going to be cool. It'll always open in quick edit mode. Let's see, what was it? And
the 30 items to, yeah, that one's cool.
Yes. That was like, I don't know who came up with 30 items as the default limit that you would see, but it's like, that's not very many. So they're expanding that default from 30 to 101, which is nice. They're also going to let you, when you're in quick edit mode, to create a new list item. So you're going to see a new button up at the top. So you can live in quick edit mode and you can create new items. You don't have to jump back and forth between what you have. And then there's open a list or document library item within the view form from quick edit. So
that's
again,
gonna be a good one.
Yeah, less having to pop back and forth and say, well, I see it in quick edit, but I really can't open the item. I've got to go back over here to do it. Now you can do everything that you want in quick edit. And I can see quick edit becoming more of a starting experience rather than, well, you've got it available, and if you need to go do something, that's great. But otherwise, you might just want to use a regular view.
So I think they've done a lot. It's just their style. So some people will live in quick edit the whole time, and others will not. It's just some people, that's their jam. So that's the way they like it.
So that's very cool. And now I am done.
Okay, Tamara, anything else from you?
Yeah.
All right.
Teams again. They're going to have a new option for the lobby where only the organizer of the meeting can join the meeting directly and everybody else goes to the lobby. So that's a change.
Cool. Sweet. All righty. Well, then we shall move to rolling out. And I'll take the first one there. And this is for using Microsoft Stream. And this one is rolling out, which is screen recording and editing in Microsoft Stream. So they're giving you the ability to screen record and then go in and edit it, which is really cool if you're making little snippets and tidbits of videos internally. So that's a great tool. I personally buy those tools for my team. So I personally will say that is a great tool that is already included in your Microsoft licensing. So for certain scenarios when you need that, if you just need to quickly do something like that, that is a great tool. It will be a cost saver in a lot of scenarios for what people are doing. So super excited to see that.
Yeah, about the only limitation I've seen on it, because I did a 1 minute Office Magic tip on that, is it is limited to 15-minute screen capture recordings.
Yeah, they said you had
again,
to do
if you're doing those
multiples.
quick things,
Yeah,
yeah,
it won't work for
it's
everything.
really not that big of a deal.
But right now, if you're buying editing software, you have to buy a sledgehammer when all you need is a little hammer. So it's,
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So when you just need the little things, it will be a great cost saver, says the person who's bought a sledgehammer many a times for people who don't need it.
Well,
so
I
that
was
one I'm
always
happy with.
I was always going into PowerPoint, the desktop version, doing screen
Yes.
recordings in there, and then saving it to OneDrive, and then moving it from OneDrive up into Stream. Like, it was such a process to get it to the point of where you could share it from what you would potentially do in Stream. But like, it always seemed kind of asinine. Like, it seemed like, well, it's nice that I can do this, but with the 30 tools that Microsoft has, there should be an easier way. So when I first saw this, I immediately thought of like, well, I've kind of been doing this for years now. I just do it in like 5 steps. So hopefully this will make those, like Jen said, if I have a customer who's having a problem and I can't get on the phone with them right then, I can do a 2-minute video that's probably better than taking screenshots and quicker, and it will solve the problem. So really excited about this one too.
And what's nice about that too is since you've done it in Stream, as soon as you finished recording it, now you can pop it up to a channel just as part of the saving process. So you don't have that thing of, well, I've got it over here. Now I need to go to Stream. Now I need to upload it. Now I need things that just, boom, it's right where you need to be.
Much better than PowerPoint. Much better. All right. Well, who's next? We'll go Tamara. Who's next? What you got with rolling out?
Well, Microsoft Teams is getting bigger. It's now changing from 5,000 people per team to 10,000 people per team.
You know,
So,
when it first came out, I thought, why in the world would you ever need that many people in a team? And as I sat in a meeting yesterday, I was like, gosh golly, we need a team of 10,000 or more people. And I need this feature to be from rolling out to launched in a totally different cloud. So I was like, all right, there are use cases that you legitimately need that. So yeah, so there are use cases where you do need that. So there you go.
yeah.
Tom's like, I still haven't found one.
Well, no, I still keep looking at my life and going, not seeing it. Nope, don't want to be part of it. Nope, I'm out of here.
I love it. All right, Tom, what do you see in rolling out, my friend?
About the only thing that really captured my attention that won't step on other people's feet or be geeky that Adam's going to take, and that would be in SharePoint. If you have a modern communications site, they're now going to have a new layout option for your site footer, which means you can get more information out there. You can have a color bar so it differentiates the fact it's a footer. And again, you know, in our SharePoint 2010 environment that we migrated from, that was like a special JavaScript piece that kind of got loaded in there, and it was really kind of a mess, where now you're going to be able to put that out there and have what look more like standard footers in your communication sites, which I think is a really good deal. So.
Yep. The one that I like is the OneNote integration in Teams. So users will be able to add a OneNote notebook to their Teams channels. When Teams first came out, that was a fun conversation. There's this wiki thing that's like a OneNote, and it looks like a OneNote, and it smells like a OneNote, but then they have their OneNotes that have already existed for years that they want to put there, and they just can't. And why can't you? Well, you just can't. but that's there, and that's kind of like a wiki, but you just can't. So I'm very excited that that one's coming. That is going to solve like so many questions of, well, you can't. I do not know why you just can't. So I'm very excited about that one. That makes a lot of sense for me, because even if a team has not been using Microsoft Teams, they very likely have one or many OneNote files. They probably have a whole system for using OneNote files, and this will be great for them to be able to just put tabs for their OneNote files. So I'm very excited to see that rolling out. Our personal team will take advantage of that, because we go through OneNote files like they're candy in grandma's purse. It's crazy. So, all right,
Okay,
Adam or
that's an image.
Tamara? Yeah.
Now I want a butterscotch.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I'll mention, so the SharePoint admin is kind of getting update to the migration experience. It's what they're calling the migration manager. So this one's kind of interesting to me. I've messed around a decent amount with the SharePoint migration tool, which is nice, but it's pretty manual. It's pretty, you kind of have to know what you're doing. It's kind of, an arduous process. Interestingly enough, if you went through and did a fast track migration with Microsoft, they use the SharePoint Online migration tool, but they basically use scripts to tie in jobs together. So even though it was manual, they could automate it a little bit more. They'd spin up multiple servers to do it, stuff like that. Always seemed like the better system, but that was never, they never made those scripts available to customers. So basically what the Microsoft migration manager is inside of SharePoint is a way to manage all that stuff better. So if you put a SharePoint Online migration tool on multiple servers, well, you can use the migration manager to now manage those multiple servers and kind of do stuff through a GUI that makes it a little bit easier. So it's basically taking the power of what you've seen Microsoft do for a couple of years now, when they were doing these fast track migrations of SharePoint stuff, and making it a little bit more viable. I think this has large potential implications depending on how good this is when you go through and do it. Right now, there's a large market and third-party tools out there that do migrations that make stuff easier. Now, I think without question, this isn't going to be as easy as something like ShareGate, which is just a drag and drop interface. But when you go through and you look at some of the stuff that you can do, some companies don't want to spend the $3 or $4 grand or whatever it's going to take to buy a ShareGate license, right? Especially if you're using smaller data. So I think this is a further step in the direction of making DIY migrations more viable, or a more realistic option for some companies out there. I don't think this is going to take the big fish out there. I don't think this is going to take the large customers that are going to be purchasing their own software anyways to make it easier. But I think this is a very much a win for smaller companies or companies that don't have huge deployments, to make it easier for them to remove the stuff themselves.
Great.
Awesome. How about you, Tamara? Do you have anything else?
Yeah, they're moving the Meet Now button in channels. So instead of where it is now, which is in with the replies and stuff, it's going to be part of the channel header. So you'll have to get out of the conversation and go find that channel and get the Meet Now option there. I don't see that as an improvement. So I'm going to have to wait and see if they can win me over.
Yeah, they've, it's like we got the pop-out chats, and we got those in our environment yesterday. Or we didn't get those in our environment yesterday. We got those in our environment a little bit ago. I was using them yesterday to chat with Tamara. And in our chat, we were like, let's have a call. And I had the pop-out on, third screen over here. There was no ability to call her from the pop-out. So that I had to go back to screen over here to find her to actually call. It was very odd. So I'm like, wait, where did the buttons go? It seemed very unnatural. So moving all of these meet and call buttons, either I'm so ingrained that I expect where everything is, that it's no longer, like, you know what I mean? I'm working from muscle memory, or we just, so I won't judge it too quickly, but I'm a little bit like, it's not as natural to me anymore. So it'd be interesting to bring in a new user and see if they fumble, or if a new user just picks it up, then I just have to relearn my muscle memory. And I haven't decided which one it is yet.
I really wanted to use the term old dog, new trick, but since I sent like a really bad precedent earlier, yeah, I don't want to go there.
Cool. Well, I think we are moving on to launched. I think we've covered mostly everything in rolling out. So launch, we will go there. This is where it should have made it to your tenants. I'll start with that. I'll start with one there. And that is SharePoint home sites. Digging it. We have SharePoint home sites in our tenant now. Finally, I love it. It's just a more consolidated view of what you have there. It's pushing features to you and different things there. So brings you branding, richer experience, blah, 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 all that good writing that they put in the description of the thing. So we have that there. Also, the multilingual page publishing for modern SharePoint intranets. So this has been something that has been coming for a long time. And I know people, there's certain agencies that have to have it. This has been a stopper for a percentage of people. So now it's there and it's up and it's running and people can do the multilingual page experience and the publishing experience. So that has launched as well. So we'll start to see that across other places as well. So those are two big things for SharePoint that have hit. So I will pass it to Adam.
So I have two kind of nerdy ones. I'll do one that I kind of don't think anyone is going to do, and then we'll see if we circle back. So intelligent classification for information governance, which is a mouthful to say. Basically, if you have advanced compliance in Office 365 or M365, you're now going to get some basically new out-of-the-box machine learning solutions. This is going to do a variety of things, but it's going to help around advanced e-discovery, records management, information governance. It's basically algorithms that Microsoft has trained to go out and look for certain types of data. It's really cool. If you look at the advanced e-discovery features and the options going there, the one use case that they have there is actually attorney-client privilege, where you can go through, and if you're a company that has your own attorneys, and the attorney is watching over someone and you need to review documents, you can basically say, oh, well, Tom is the attorney and Jen is the user that Tom is the attorney for. Identify those two people, and then it will actually go through and scan all of the documents and all the correspondence and pre-identify what it thinks will potentially be attorney-client privilege information that you wouldn't have to expose when going through and doing. So normally, if you'd go through the process of doing advanced e-discovery, you would find all the stuff that someone would have to manually go through and redact the stuff that they want to do. Well, this was with this machine learning algorithm, just giving it those 2 points of who the attorney is and who the client is, it will actually go through and try to figure out what's potentially privileged information between them that doesn't need to be there, and auto redact stuff that you then just have to go through and review. So that's an example of the type of machine learning based stuff that they're doing that you're going to be seeing coming to other platforms. And I love when you get into this high-end nerdy stuff, because this is the stuff that's like straight up saves hundreds of hours if it works well, right? If you can go through and you can empower some of these solutions, it's where you're potentially replacing multiple people that you would have to pay to go through and do this. And what it's really doing is making you focus on the stuff that is core to your job. So really nerdy, really cool stuff. But like I said, that's one example of the attorney-client privilege. Obviously, there's other stuff going on there, but it's cool to see some of that stuff starting to come out and be powerful.
Very cool.
That's really slick.
How about you, Tamara?
I am excited about the Microsoft Teams enhanced scheduling form. So when you go to make a meeting in Teams, you have some very limited options available to you in setting up the meeting. Well, now Microsoft is adding an improved scheduling assistant, time zone picker, availability status on people and locations, and options to add required and optional attendees, which I was surprised they didn't start off with that, considering they had channels and then they had invitees. I was surprised they didn't just have optional, make one required and make one optional. So that's a good thing. I think it's going to make scheduling meetings in Teams a lot easier. It might actually move me away from Outlook and scheduling my meetings in Outlook.
I find that I go back.
Did a lot of parity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. I find that I try to schedule in Teams and it's not like Outlook, and I need a feature and I end up just going back to Outlook. So that parity will help tremendously. Another one that's from Teams is cool is the participation report in Teams meetings, where you can go in and say who's who's joining the team meeting, who came in, who left, what time did they leave, did they come in while the speaker was present or the organizer was present. Good job, kiddos. This will be great next year for your pandemic part 2.
Electric Bugaloo.
Oh, too
Yeah, and
funny.
I think right now is just capturing the information during the meeting, but I think we're also working on making it being able to capture the information after the meeting occurs. So if you forget to do it during the meeting, you'll be able to do it after.
Yeah, that'd be cool too. So awesome. Tom, what do you have?
Well, I don't know that I have much that hasn't already been talked about. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and say, yep, I'm good. And we can move on to canceled.
Okay, well, I have a couple more.
Or we can move on to yours. Thank you very much.
With Stream, you can also edit your videos. We talked about being able to record them and stuff like that was rolling out too, but you can add emojis and text and annotations and stuff like that. That's in there as well. And then also from Microsoft Teams, when you're in a meeting, you can get into your meeting options and change them once the meeting has already started. So this is nice when you're in a meeting and you realize, oops, maybe I shouldn't have let everybody present, or oops, maybe I need to let everybody present, something like that. You're going to be able to go in and easily access the meeting options once the meeting has started. I think those are the only other two
I have
that
one
I
quick
saw.
one too.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah, so basically this is a very admin-y one right up my wheelhouse, but if you've ever tried to manage RBAC roles in Office 365, the experience through the Microsoft, like the Office 365 admin portal, to be blunt, was shit. Like, all you could really do is select several very high umbrella roles, and you couldn't get down to the specific role-based access controls that you see. You had to go to the Azure AD portal. And again, like, if you're comfortable with it, great, but a lot of people, that's a scary other portal they don't want to go into, and it doesn't make sense to them what they have to do there. So what they're basically doing is you'll start to see, because again, this isn't launched, you'll start to see it rolled out for customers that will basically have a roles section built into the Microsoft Admin Center. So now you can get a lot more deliberate or a lot more prescriptive with what you're doing. Role-based access control is 1,000% the correct way to be doing it, rather than giving someone access over absolutely everything that they can do inside of security and compliance. You can go in and say, oh, well, this person's allowed to review e-discovery cases that have been made. And you can give them just that specific role. So you can give a lot more privileges, is much more following along the lines of least access or least privilege model, which is what you should be doing from a security and compliance standpoint. And so they're basically bringing this functionality that has existed for a couple years, to be honest, in Azure AD to a much more easier and accessible place inside of the Office 365 Admin Center. So not big changes, just more accessible for the people that live and work inside of the Office 365 portal.
It makes sense. Well, cool. Well, moving on to canceled. The first one is manual sensitivity labels, and that's not one that we have to worry about because it's a duplicate. So there was a duplicate of something in Word, PowerPoint, Excel. So something that they're doing with manually applying labels, but it's a duplicate, so we won't worry about it. But then there's another one that I'm hoping Adam can explain to us, and he can talk through that one and talk about why it's canceled. But it's not really canceled. It's postponed because I guess their approach didn't work, is what it's saying. So maybe you can talk us through that one, Adam.
So basically, Microsoft tried to go through and do not allow for domains that fail authentication. And this was basically if domains failed authentication, they would not allow stuff to go out through it, not allow stuff to be sent through. Basically, they had some problems with it. More or less, this was kind of, we talked about this briefly last week, but basically this is a step in the right direction. But there are many, many reasons why a domain can fail authentication. Where they're ultimately wanting to go with this is going that if you don't do authentication, you can't do setup inside of M365, because ultimately that will mean that there's going to be less people that go through and scam and stuff like that. Like, let's be honest, we've all gotten scam emails from Office 365 at some point where someone's hacked a credit card and gone in and set stuff up and act like they're a domain. There was clever ways you could go about doing that and doing things. They started going down this policy, then basically decided to revisit it and kind of re-implement it in a different way. So rather than just being this secure by default do not allow feature for ATP. They're basically going to go through and redesign it from the ground up to make it a little bit more complete and a little bit more secure. So you're going to be seeing this coming back. They're just removing this specific roadmap item where it's not going to potentially come in through ATP. I don't know the platform it will, but it will basically be a more complete solution that tries to get on top of spam and stuff from a little bit without impacting a user's ability to go in and do stuff. Because there's a couple things. Maybe you don't want to go in and do some of the verification methods that they have for your domain when you're setting up your domain, but you still want to add your domain so you can start setting up your users, because you need to do that before you migrate over. So it's a tight line that you have to walk through it, but they're trying to figure out the best way to do that to protect themselves, their servers, and all of us who are potentially getting those mail without impacting the onboarding process for the new users.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, that gives us the week. So thank you for joining us, and we shall be back next week with another round of updates. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Stay safe.